Preseason game number 2 is just around the corner as the Seahawks prepare to take on the Tennessee Titans. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. We have made it to the end of the week. We have made it to Friday here, and we have made it to just 1 day short of the Seahawks' second preseason game. So we are about, 31 hours away from kickoff here. And obviously, it doesn't hit quite the same as the first preseason game, because the first preseason game is the first Seahawks football you've seen in months and months. But it's still another game, and we still got some stuff to discuss going into this one. So, going to spend some time talking about the Tennessee Titans, going to spend some time talking about what we might want to see out of the Seahawks this week, and just try to get a feel for what is worth watching and what might tell us something about where this team is headed in 2024. So, first of all, before I get into the opponent this week, I want to say thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please click the thumbs up button down below. Subscribe if you're new and you want daily Seahawks content. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to help support the channel. All right, so this week, Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. We practice against them twice. Quite honestly, we might have learned more from those practices than we're going to learn from this game. Because the Titans have already come out and said, I'll just go ahead and lead with the big information here. We've already heard that the Tennessee Titans are not going to be playing their starters. So, not going to be seeing a lot of Will Levis. Not going to be seeing very much Tony Pollard or Calvin Ridley or Peter Skoronski or Jeffrey Simmons. It's going to be the backup show. And obviously, when you're dealing with something like that, you are talking about a situation where you have to remember that the stuff that you see is not going to necessarily be indicative of what you can expect when the regular season starts. You're playing against second stringers, playing against third stringers. In some cases, you're playing against fourth stringers that won't even make the team. So this is the nature of preseason. But it's not that often that you get to your second preseason game, so the middle preseason game, and you hear a team basically say, yeah, no starters. Now, the Seahawks, not to be outdone, came out shortly after Callahan said that and said, yeah, we're not going to be playing very many starters either. So I wouldn't expect very much from this team either in terms of showing stuff. So the interesting things to watch are going to be more along the lines of schematic and style rather than individual players. So understand that we might see a little bit of Byron Murphy. If I had to guess, he would be one of the quote-unquote starters that does play, because he's not really a starter because he's still behind Big Cat, if you want to be technical about it. You might see a little bit of like a quote-unquote starter who's only a starter because of injuries, like Tyrese Knight, even though we don't expect him to start when the season starts. You might see a quote-unquote starter like an Anthony Bradford because he's in a battle to win the starting job with Christian Haynes. But it's going to be light, and it's going to be a little bit thinner in terms of watching things to be interested in. Like, this will be our second preseason game where I seriously doubt you're going to see Geno Smith, because if you play Geno Smith, that means you have to play Charles Cross. That means you have to play George Fant. Laken Tomlinson. You're not going to be able to play Connor Williams, but you would probably really want to. You're going to play all your starters on the offensive line. You're going to be motivated to play your starters at receiver, or else why put the starting quarterback out there? Rex Ryan knows all about this, and this is something that lost Rex Ryan his job, putting Mark Sanchez in a preseason game with a third-string offensive line and watching him get hurt because the defense just completely swamps him, because of course they do, because they have their third-string offensive line out there. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that team. You don't want to be Rex Ryan. So I'm not expecting that. And at that point, there's a little bit of a cascade effect, right? No Walker and no Charbonnet, because Charbonnet's hurt, so you're down to your third, fourth, and fifth string running backs. I don't expect any of the starting receivers to play as well. Maybe you see a tiny bit from JSN, but it's going to be a lot of Bobo, a lot of Derek Young, a lot of Chenault, a lot of Cody White, a lot of Aesop Winston. and you're going to be testing the depth of your offensive line as well. So, what are we looking for this weekend? What are we watching for against this Titans team? So, starting with the offense, I'm really interested to see who's going for that last receiver spot. The way I see it, you've got Derek Young, you've got Cody White, you've got Aesop Winston. Those are your three guys. One of those three guys makes the team. The other two make the practice squad if they get through. And I think it's going to be Derek Young, but it's not over. This is not a settled, this is not settled. The math is not calculated here. So they got to fight it out. And I really want to see that because that position matters. Whoever gets that spot is going to be playing a lot of special teams, and he might see some field the field a little bit on offense this year, especially if people get hurt. But even if they don't be surprised. So the battle for the end of the receiver room. That's number one. Number two, I want to see something from Jack Westover. Because at this point, we don't know what's going on with Pharaoh Brown yet. As of me recording this video, I don't know what's going on with Pharaoh Brown. But there's certainly a scenario here where he's okay. And if he's not okay, then this is pretty easily settled. But you've got Noah Fant, Pharaoh Brown, A.J. Barner as your three tight ends on the roster. And you might have Brady Russell and Jack Westover fighting for that last practice squad spot. And while you could carry two tight ends on the practice squad, you also might not. So if you're Jack Westover and you're looking at that preseason game where you didn't really do anything and Brady Russell had a great game, you're like, yeah, I need to make a move here. I need to do something. I need to register some kind of a hit here, or else I'm not even going to be on the practice squad here. I'm going to be sitting at home on the couch waiting for somebody to get hurt. So I want to see something from Jack Westover more than anything. And if not, then I guess, you put Brady Russell there as well. For all we know, Brady Russell is going to end up on the 53-man roster at this point, depending on what happens with Pharaoh. So that's the stuff that I think is the most interesting on offense. There is obviously some fun stuff that's going to be happening on the offensive line, but I don't know exactly what parts of it are going to be most notable. Like, is Laken Tomlinson going to play? If he does play, I want to see him improve from last week where he was very middling. I want to see him restore some confidence that he can be the starter. If it's Haynes and Bradford playing, then I'm going to try to see who's playing better of those two. Because I believe that position is truly up for grabs. Maybe Bradford has a little bit of an advantage, but I don't think it would take that much for Haynes to snatch it back. So that's the stuff that I'm waiting for on offense. Defensively, again, I think we're going to see Byron Murphy. And of course, can he keep it up from last week? That's going to be interesting to see if he's out there. If Tyrese Knight is out there, and I'm sure he will be, we have linebacker injuries as is. He's probably got to be out there. Can he keep it up? Because he was excellent last week, well beyond my expectations. As someone who kind of likes him, I still wasn't expecting his first NFL action to be that clean and that good. So that, maybe you can garner a little bit of interest out of a guy like a Jacob Sheriff, who is probably fighting for a practice squad spot. And he was a guy who earned a lot of kudos from fans last week because he played really well. But when I'm looking at that edge rusher room, of course, you got Derek Hall, who I'm sure is going to play. And I want to see if he can keep it up from last week because he's got a lot to prove this year. I'm also looking at a guy like Nelson Caesar. So I'm presuming he's going to get to play a lot. That's a guy who may very well end up as our fourth edge rusher. And if he is, that frees up the $3 million with Darrell Taylor. We can let Darrell Taylor go, send him out into free agency with just the $20,000 guaranteed, and then just say, hey, we're going to get enough out of Nelson Caesar and Draymond Jones at edge this year to where we don't need Darrell Taylor's snaps, and we can save that money for something else. And in order to make that happen, I think you're going to have to see some signs of life from Caesar, because Draymond Jones is currently injured, and he's had a up and down camp so far with being able to get on the field. So Nelson Caesar showing that he could be playable if you need him is, I think, pretty important here. So, going to keep an eye on that. I think that's one of the most interesting defensive subplots this week. Safety, if we're not going to be seeing Jenkins or Love, that means you've got Kobe Bryant. You've got Kevon Wallace. Both those guys have looked pretty good so far, supposedly. And Kobe in particular had a really nice first preseason game against the Chargers with the interception, almost had another, and they keep it up. Can Marquise Blair maybe make a play for a roster spot here? And if not, can he make a play for a practice squad spot? That safety room, it's pretty set, but I still want to see more. And if the safeties continue to look really good, and we get a sense that maybe we're going to see some 3 safety sets this year, that might liberate the team to consider, hey, maybe we can get a 6th round pick for Trey Brown. Maybe we can get a 6th round pick for a Mike Jackson. 2 guys who will not be here next year. If we don't need them this year, then why not go make at least a little hay happen in the trade market? So maybe it liberates them to consider making a deal like that. We already did it with Nick Harris because we didn't need him anymore. So if things shake out and it's proven that we don't need some of these corners, then maybe something happens there. And those would definitely be the main things that I'm hanging on. There's a lot that in this game that's only going to be somewhat interesting, right? Like Bobo. We all like seeing Jake Bobo. He didn't have a great game last week against the Chargers, by the way. PFF docked him a lot. But Bobo's going to make the team. We know that. If Bobo plays a good game, then so be it. That's cool. But it's not like Bobo's fighting for his roster spot here. He's making the team. JSN might play a little bit and might do some stuff, but he's making the team. Even a guy like Kenny McIntosh or George Halani, I think we both pretty much know that, or we all pretty much know both of those guys are going to make the team. So watching those guys is fun, but I'm looking for the guys who have something to prove in terms of like playing time or making the team or maybe earning some kind of a practice squad spot. Those would be my top guys. All right, so that's really all that can be said about this one. You've already kind of got your expectations set down a little bit. I want to see what this defense can do against a quarterback like a Malik Willis, because Malik Willis obviously plays a very specific type of football. He's very much a dual threat. He's a bad dual threat quarterback, but he is a dual threat quarterback. He does have some wheels, and getting to practice against a quarterback with that skill set is good. That's one of the reasons why I really want PJ Walker to stay on our practice squad, because he brings some of those skills to the table, and he's a guy you can practice against during the weeks leading up to games against quarterbacks that do that kind of stuff. So I want to see how this team plays against him. Obviously, you have quarterbacks out there who have that dual threat stuff that do it way better than Willis, but Willis is still bringing that threat that you have to account for. So how does a guy like Derek Hall or Nelson Caesar look when they have to play that threat, that danger of him just tucking the ball and running with it? There's going to be some, RPO stuff or read option stuff probably from Malik Willis, because that's his game. How is this defensive line going to play against that? Is this defense going to be able to handle that situation? So I'm excited. If it's Howell for most of the game and then get a little bit of Walker at the end, I want to see if maybe Howell can hit some bigger plays. He didn't really hit any big plays against the Chargers. He had a decent game. He did a lot of good things. But at the end of the day, you look at his yards per attempt, it's low because everything was short and underneath and simple. And while that's fine for a guy like him, you know that he's going to want to put some big plays out there at some point to boost that a little bit and show that he can be a playmaker, not just a distributor, not just a game manager. So I'd like to see a little bit of that at some point. And other than that, just keep doing what you're doing, right? Like, we're pretty happy right now as Seahawks fans based on what we saw last week. And if they can keep it up in 2020, this Saturday, I don't know why I said 2024 there. If they can keep it up, then we're going to be happy. But that's really all I can say, guys. There's some stuff to be excited about, but overall, it's just going to be another preseason game, and most of us are ready for the regular season. I will be live streaming this game. I'll be going live right before the game starts, and I'll be staying live for the entirety of the game. You guys know how it goes. You guys know how it typically works, so come on by. There will be a BetUS giveaway during the stream, but you have to attend the stream to see the details and enter. So if you have or want to make a BetUS account, be sure to swing on by. It's going to be basically giving away some free money. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Gonna be fun. I'm gonna be talking a lot about this one, but let's get some real football here soon, please. Go Hawks.